What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video. Today I'm going back to old setup I used for a few other videos. Gonna chat with you guys, kind of a little more of a personal kind of vibe to the videos. I do don't get me wrong, I do love using my laptop. I do love the new backgrounds of play stuff. But I kind of like having a more kind of me and you kind of video setup. So I do want to use it more often. So it'll be something. It won't be all the time. It'll be something maybe once every couple weeks or so. I'm gonna have a discussion video where I just you and me guys talking to each other. So we're going to talk about Spyrals. Now, you guys have seen over the past few weeks, I've done tons of videos on the deck because, well, quite frankly, I like the deck. I know, a lot of you guys are, before you smash that dislike button, I liked Spyrals when well, the first thing is, I knew that Quick Fix was a good card. Some cards you just look at and you can see the potential for abuse with Quick Fix. When I first read the card, I was like, this thing's not once per turn? That could be a problem in the future, and now it is. I didn't really play the deck through all the support, but when I first read Master Plan, I was like, this card is really good. And I even had a bad Metal Foe Spiral list. It was really designed to just use Master Plan search effect, and that was honestly one of the problems. And Konami gave this deck, much like they did with Beatrice, with Burning Abyss, they gave Spyrals a Link monster that literally fixes every single problem the deck has and takes it from a kind of roguish tier 2, tier 3 deck up to a tier 0 meta deck. And that's actually really cool to see a deck get one card that literally just breaks the entire deck. And I like to see it, and I enjoy Spyrals. I enjoy the crazy Link combos. It reminds me a lot of it reminds me of what DDDs could have been if they didn't require 3 or 4 cards and Link summoning never happened. But anyways, I think people are going a little too far to say Spyrals, literally what they've been out for less than a week and people are already saying they want the entire deck banned. But Konami does what they do for a reason. They released Double Helix as an ultra rare. That's one thing that kind of shows you that the deck, if they really were going to keep the deck around like they did with Draconic Diagram and Masterpiece, they would have made it secret rare. That's a key thing. They did the same thing with Pepe when they printed Damage Juggler, Damage Juggler. Pretty much all the Perform Mages were commons. Monkey Board was a common. Joker, a common. You're kind of getting a theme here where Konami is making an ultra and not a secret because they're more than likely going to hit it pretty quickly. You also can see the fact that Konami, with their last ban list, which, by the way, Konami did a fantastic job with the last ban list. I remember John Moore was talking about doing a poll on the Zodiac Duelist Facebook page, and he said he was surprised how many people were just happy with the ban list, that Konami did everything we asked them to do, which was hit the top tier decks and make the format more fair. Now we have Spyrals, and but the thing is that Spyrals are a good deck, and it's only going to get better because Trigate Wizard is going to come out in a few weeks. And honestly, I think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players have this mindset where if they cannot beat something, use the ban list to get rid of it, rather than actually figuring out how to counter it. And that's honestly a shame because, every deck has weaknesses. Even some of the best decks of all time are prone to bricking and combo. And honestly, as good as Spyrals are, I don't even think they're as good as full power Zoo, simply because Spyrals cannot go second nearly as effectively as Zoo could with Terror Top at 3 and with Rat at 3. The fact is, I don't think that Spyrals can go second nearly as effectively. They can, but not quite as effectively as Zoo could. And I just think that people are freaking out when Zoo is 32 out of 32 out of its first event. And I remember playing against the deck with DDDs at my regional, and almost every matchup, 5 out of 9 rounds, well, 5 out of 8 because one opponent didn't show up, was Zoo. And I lost every one but one. So it's not like this is an unreasonable expectation when you saw if you looked at Double Helix, saw how good the card was, saw that it could grab Master Plan from the deck, which Master Plan searches 3 cards, you kind of saw that coming. And if you went to Dallas, maybe you didn't see that coming because you're like, oh, it doesn't have Trigate Wizard, but the deck is still really good without Trigate Wizard. And I just think people just need to chill, just relax, take a little time to figure out how the deck works and how to counter it, because there are ways to counter it. And speaking of countering, that's what I'm going to do in the next part of the video. I'm going to do 5 give you guys 5 cards that you guys can use to counter Spyrals. These are going to be outside the box cards. These aren't going to be, what's his name? This is going to be this. It's not going to be Droll Knockbird. It's going to be cards outside the box that you guys can play in your deck to kind of counter and give you guys a little bit outside the box thinking of this deck. So first card I remember Brad actually talked to my buddy who played Spyrals before Double Helix, has been playing them since they came out, is Magic Deflector. He said a lot of people at his locals, because his locals is a very competitive scene, they side whatever tops the last week, they side for it the next week, and Magic Deflector was a card he said he did see. If you're unfamiliar with Magic Deflector, and hopefully if I've edited it correctly, it'll be on screen right here. Magic Deflector is a normal trap card that simply turns off, I believe it's quick play spells, field spells, and equips. I could be missing something, but I don't. But the important thing is it turns off field spells. Turning off field spells is pretty big against Spirals because Resort is a very, very important card. The deck needs its field spell, and turning that off is pretty big. You're also turning off Last Resort can equip itself, but it doesn't. It's considered a equip card, so it can't do anything. And then we're going to come back to more of that later. And it's considered a equip card, so that means it's a spell. It means that Magic Deflector turns it off. They can equip it, but it can't use its effect or anything. And it doesn't protect Sleeper from targeting. It also turns off the Big Red, the Premature Burial, that searchable Premature Burial they have as well, and it turns off Fully Armed if they happen to be going second. They can't use Fully Armed to break your board. These are big things. These are big important things that you are turning off when you're playing at Spirals. It's not going to win the game for you, like this probably will, but it does slow them down, and in combination with other things you might have on your board, it can do something. It's not going to stop them dead in their tracks, but it's going to do enough. It might do enough combination if you have other cards on the board. Speaking of having other cards on the board, the second card I'm going to talk about is Abyss Dweller. So Abyss Dweller is a pretty old card. It came out in Abyss Rising. Not sure exactly what year it was, but it's been around a very, very long time. It's a simple rank 4 that simply has a quick effect to turn off all graveyard effects for the turn. One thing I will stress against Spirals, which I've stressed a lot, between my collaboration on the other channel with the Joseph and Master Swag King, the deck is very graveyard dependent, and Dweller completely cuts off the graveyard for an entire turn. If you have first against Spirals, set up a Dweller with, let's say I'm playing Magicians, I set up Dweller with the Time Pendulum Graph, it's going to be very difficult for the Spiral player to play through that. Because yes, they can make Double Helix, but Master Plan's not going to get searches. The missions that Master Plan can search, which is really big because the fact that Master Plan can search a card that Monster Reborns her and then search another copy of that same card is pretty big, especially when Quick Fix can ditch those cards. But you're turning those off as well, so if they happen to have Foolish Burial Goods, those are essentially dead cards in their hand. And number 3, and this is the biggest thing, is you are cutting off Quick Fix. Quick Fix cannot special summon itself out of the graveyard. Yes, it can still be normal summon. Yes, they can still open Machine Dupe, and if you have Machine Dupe, you're probably in a bad position anyways. But it cuts those things off, and that is big. You're cutting off the Master Plan plus the 3 searches Master Plan will give them when it hits the board, and when it sends the graveyard. You're cutting off all the quick fix searches, and you're cutting off the missions that they might happen to have. If they play Foolish Burial Goods, they can't use those either. Those 3 things you're cutting off are pretty big, and if you combine that with something like, say, Magic Deflector, it's pretty dang good. Then the third card I want to talk about is Different Dimension Ground. This is kind of an old card, and the first thing when you read this card is simply a 1-turn Macrocosmos. And you might say, well, Dimensional Fissure exists, Macrocosmos exists, why wouldn't I play those cards? Well, first off, these cards are limited. That's a big thing when you're side decking, is you want to think, okay, if this card is limited and I side it in, I'm going to see it less. That is a big thing when you're side decking. Whereas with Different Dimension Ground, it's only for that in turn. So, especially if you're playing a deck that's graveyard dependent, you can probably afford to put side deck Dimension Ground going first because your opponent is not going to. You're only losing grave for a turn, and your deck can still function in a lot of cases. But Different Dimension Ground really, really hurts Spirals because they need their graveyards. So anytime they link summon, the stuff gets banished instead. Anytime they try to activate Foolish Burial, it creates so many dead cards for them, and on top of that, it prevents them from putting Spiral cards in their graveyards to summon Sleeper. So not only can they not, they can summon Double Helix, sure, but that's not going to, Master Plan can't get it searched either because it's not being sent to the graveyard. It's a pretty dang good card. Different Dimension Ground is also pretty solid. It's not bad against Pendulum Magicians because it does, if you do, but they're still being destroyed, so they can still trigger their effects in some cases, but it's pretty dang good against ABC. It can be, but it's pretty good against ABC, and if you are some of your locals is still playing Dinosaurs, it's also very good against that deck. Overall, I feel like Different Dimension Ground is a pretty decent little tech card that you can side in your deck. It's mostly good going first though, because it is a trap card. Another card I want to talk about is Psyblocker. I've got a couple of them right here. But Psyblocker is an interesting card. A lot of you guys probably never, even have seen this card or seen it because it is only has a couple prints. It's like in battle packs, and it's a secret rare in Star Strike Blast. So not a card you're going to come across every day. Psyblocker is a pretty simple card. If you guys remember Prohibition, it's the same thing. But it's a monster, so it's much like Denko Sekka, like where Denko Sekka is a cold wave on legs, Psyblocker's a Prohibition on legs. It has a once per turn. It's not a hard once per turn, so if you special summon it, you can use it as effect again. You call a card, and that card is turned off until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this is a big thing in Spirals because you can call two particular cards that they really need for their combos. You can call Super Agent, which means they can't summon Double Helix. So the way Psyblocker works is they cannot attempt to place the card you called on the board. And that's a really big thing against a deck like Spyrals, where you're cutting them off from their key play that they need to get off to, snowball into the crazy boards. Turning off Quick Fix is also big because you can't physically place Quick Fix on the board, which means no matter which way they have to get to it, they can't place that Quick Fix on the board, which means all those crazy Quick Fix combos are not going to happen. Psyblocker overall is a pretty strong card, but it's not going to win you the game on its own. Spirals are still a deck that can establish if they open decently with other cards. But overall, Psyblocker is a pretty decent little card. The fifth card I'm going to talk about today, and this is kind of a little bit outside the box thinking when I was thinking about it, is actually from a subscriber, a commenter recommended it, so shout outs to you, is Spell Shattering Arrow. So he recommended Spell Shattering Arrow on Fairy Wind, and while I do think Fairy Wind's a cool card, it's a trap card, so it has to set for a turn. That's the problem I have with it. However, Spell Shattering is a little interesting to me. So Spell Shattering, you might look at it and say, Aura just destroys all face-up spells and trap cards. Yes, but does it say target? No, it doesn't. It does not target. And that is big because it bypasses Spirals or protection. But the way you use Spell Shattering Arrow against Spirals is, okay, let's just say they activate you. You have a Spell Shattering in hand with a couple other pieces, and you activate, you bait out their sleeper, basically. Like, they activate their sleeper effect. Now the key thing is they activate Spiral Sleeper has to target a Spiral card, including itself. Usually it's going to be equipped with the Last Resort, which will mean that they're going to have Sleeper target itself. Resort's effect will kick in, prevent it from being destroyed. Well, when they activate that Sleeper's effect targeting itself, you chain Spell Shattering Arrow in response. Spell Shattering Arrow will then destroy all their face-up spells and traps, and Sleeper will destroy itself at the end of the chain. Then Sleeper will trigger its Grave effect, which will nuke these Spiral player's board for you. It does summon a Super Agent, which will pop a spell and trap on the board, but you have lose Sleeper's main weakness against them, and you have completely nuked their board on their own. I'm not saying Spell Shattering Arrow is a fantastic card. It needs other cards to work with it, but if you do get it off, Spiral player is going to be very salty because their entire board is going to be gone. So anyway, guys, about comes to the end of the video game. What do you guys think of these attacks against Spirals? Do you have any other recommendations? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. So Warstorm signing out.